And we are live on a Monday, April the 6th, 2020, 7 o'clock Eastern time. This, where, hang on a second.
No, that was me.
Oh, that was you. Okay.
That was I had to turn off volume.
Another Sunday has come and gone, and we look forward to Sunday tomorrow. Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee on the Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight. Hope everybody had a great day. Joseph, if you talk to Lisa, your sister, I straightened her out on the stimulus check and how it works. So if she's got
How are you
any,
going back and forth with her?
yeah, there's confusion. There's general confusion here, folks, about this stimulus check because it's never explained right. And once upon a time, I actually worked for the IRS for a short period of time. So let me just explain, just really quick, explain it. It's a refundable tax credit, okay? And I guess the best, easiest way to look at this is you're filing your 2019 returns right now. So this tax credit is for 2020. So when you file your tax return, you calculate your tax liability, right? Then you compare that to how much tax you had withheld, and the difference, positive or negative, would be how much you owe or how much you would get back in a refund. Okay, so what the government is doing with the stimulus check is a refundable tax credit is for the tax year 2020. So when you file your return next April, God willing, um, you already have a $1,200 credit that the government has put in. Okay, for those of you getting the tax credit, you're being given a $1,200 tax credit for 2020. It's being refunded out to you right now, so you actually have it in cash. Why am I hearing double voices? Now it went away. So that's being refunded out to you. So your 2020 balance right now is zero. When you file your return next year, okay, you're going to have your withholding, God willing, and you're going to have a tax liability, just like you have every year. And that's going to be, either going to owe money or a refund. The $1,200 you're getting is you're keeping it. It's yours. You don't have to pay it back. It's a refundable tax credit, plain and simple.
And so for somebody who is living in one of those studio apartments in Manhattan where the rent is like $1,150, all of
There
that
are
is
studio. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait. There are closets whose rent are $1,150. A studio apartment's like 3,000 at least, 3 or 4 grand.
all right.
But
Well,
either way, yeah, it's 12. It's the tax credit, and of course there's the unemployment stuff, which is a totally separate issue. There are quite a few people that are actually going to wind up making more money being unemployed than they were when they were working.
my daughter, for example, that is one of those cases. She's
Yeah.
making she's going to be making off better now as opposed to when she was employed.
Well, you
Weird.
know what? It's actually net. It's actually probably a good thing, if only because of the fact that whenever they get the economy started, they're going to need people to spend money. I mean, bottom line. So
Right.
it'll all go right back into the economy. Also, with everything that's going on, I did notice a comment on my. Thanks, Timothy Veltman pointed this out. So yes, the lack of airplanes because they're not flying them means that the chemicals they're not spraying them. Okay, would you agree with that, Joe? They're not spraying the mind control chemicals at the moment. Someone pointed out that they're not seeing it, and they were concerned.
Well,
So
are you talking about contrails or as what many
contrails, entrails, whatever you want to call them.
chemtrails or whatever? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and by the way, just in case it's not clear to you, not you, Joe, but if it's not clear to you watching this, I'm being sarcastic, okay? Just to make sure, uh, but yeah, the other thing is, I know we'll get into the weather, but I have to bring it. There's this there, some of these conspiracies are they some of them are really just absurd. I mean, some of them when they're kind of when you read them, you think, okay, this might make a good movie plot. So I'll give you that. But there's this 5G conspiracy theory that the virus is being caused by the they're gonna bring out 5G communications soon, and that the virus is being caused by all this. It's either that or there's a secret plot. They needed to get everybody out of buildings to put in 5G so that when they start everything back up, they're going to be mind controlling everybody.
Yeah.
I was having I had a field day with somebody yesterday about that. I pointed out to them that um, since they they obviously conspiracy involves the entire medical profession, so they're collecting everybody's DNA. In fact, they already have everybody's DNA. If you've been to the doctor, they have your DNA. So once this is over, they're going to be cloning everybody with the DNA, and one by one, all the real people are going to be disappearing, and we're all going to be replaced by clones. Okay, so it's possible, Joe, tomorrow that the clones of you and I are going to be doing this show. So just, you know, if you're watching at home and it's something tomorrow doesn't feel right, you
Is that like
know,
is that like the
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
the episode of the Flintstones where there was like 50 Fred Flintstones walking around, all saying
Yabba,
things? Yeah,
dabba, do.
do.
Yabba, dabba, do.
Incredible.
Oh, God, yeah.
If you go on YouTube, you can actually find on YouTube there was a movie made right after 9/11 called Loose Change, where the conspiracy theorists say that the collapse of the World Trade Center and all that happened after that, the Pentagon and that place out in Pennsylvania, all of this was planned by the government. That the government planned all of this for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't have the background. But believe it or not, one prominent person who believes deep in his heart that that is indeed the case, is Mr. Grant, Ed Asner from the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's,
It's crazy.
please. Look, here's the thing. Uh, uh, Popular Mechanics, the magazine Popular Mechanics, did a whole thing and explained thermodynamics and physics and why things happen the way they happen without going into all of that. But the bottom line with conspiracy theorists and the people who hold them as truths, but those people are in general narcissists. They have a piece of information. They think they have a piece of information that's very valuable, and they use that to lure somebody to say, you need to follow me, you need to listen to me, because I have this piece of information that shows that I'm really smarter than everybody else. And I mean, it's just, things. The older as I get older, and as I've grown older, every year that goes by, so you start to discover that things that you thought were dreadfully complicated are actually quite simple, and at the same time, things that you thought were simple are actually rather complicated. So it all turns on an ear, and some of these things are kind of fun when you read them, but you know, while something is going on, I just find it especially something like this where people are dying from it. To go out and put up some sort of conspiracy theory, at the very least, is we can call it insensitive. Okay. You got people that are sick, you got people that are dying, and the circle has grown very tight around me, knowing quite a few people that have tested positive for it, and some of them came very close, as I'm finding out now, to meeting the good Lord. So it's really grossly insensitive at the very least, and just downright insulting when you stand there and try to say that this is all some sort of fake, you know, nonsense. So anyway, that's the short rant for today. Did you enjoy? It was a beautiful day today. just utterly beautiful.
Yeah, in fact, I made a comment on my Facebook page. It was such a beautiful day that my neighbor's kids were fighting over who was going to throw out the garbage.
Oh, nice. Yeah, at least it was something to do.
Yes, yes. But it was also an anniversary. 38 years ago, we had here in the New York metropolitan area an April 1st, the first time ever that we actually had a blizzard happen in the month of April. We may have had heavy snowstorms, but this was a full scale blizzard where we actually had heavy snow, strong gusty winds, temperatures were in the mid 20s. There was thunder, there was lightning, and when it was all over said and done, we had in New York City, Central Park had 9.6 inches of snow.
They couldn't round it up to 10.
They couldn't round it up to 10.
By the
Sorry
way,
about
I brought the map up, the surface maps and upper air map from the metrocenter.com website for that particular date. What's called the reanalysis. So it just kind of looks at all the data from that day and sort of figures out what the surface maps look like. Because they're kind of hard to find. You have the maps from 1985 on are in there on the WPC website. But this was something that, in terms of a setup, and also, Joe, this storm occurred about 2 weeks after I had moved from here to Corpus Christi, Texas, to start my first on-air television job. And I remember following this on the models, and it was kind of proof for me of of how important it is to get the biases out of your forecast, because I was forecasting this from down in South Texas, and I was able to do it with I didn't have any kind of axe to grind, and I didn't have I wasn't up being a snow weenie in the New York City area rooting for the snow on, so it taught me the value of being objective. Of how you're supposed to be objective, and it worked out quite well in terms of what I thought was going to happen. So it was a confidence booster. But here it is on the surface. So, they had a 99 low in near Louisville, Kentucky. You've got this 1030 high over Lake Winnipeg, and if you look at the upper air, the darker blues, you see how the flow goes, folks. It goes up. It starts up in the Arctic region and goes all the way down into southeastern Canada. So you really had very cold Arctic-like air, or Arctic air, really, that bled southward, and that's a big that connection to the polar vortex up in the Arctic region is very, very important. We spent the whole winter without that connection this year, so the surface low winds up in southeast Ohio, and you see the isobars are kind of bagged down toward the Carolinas. The high is just north of North Dakota. Part of the high is building east into the St. Lawrence Valley. And then when you move it along by that morning, you've got a low in Northern Virginia getting ready to pop offshore. Everything was here in terms of a major storm. And you've also noticed the upper trough goes negative here. Here's right in here. Hang on, let me just little draw it in for you so you can see it a bit better. Uh, there you go, right there. There's your upper trough, right like this, and that was that's all it took. It was a perfect upper air setup. You had Joe. The low got down to less than a 980 low, southeast of Montauk, south of Nantucket. It was quite deep.
And the interesting thing, Joe, about this storm is that virtually every forecaster in the New York metropolitan area, in fact, the front page of the New York Post had a giant headline the day of the event saying, "Get ready for a big blizzard." Everybody was talking about this except for one person, and that one person was none other than your friend and certainly not mine, Storm Field.
Ah,
Storm Field gave the most incredible. The night before, on the 11 o'clock news on Eyewitness News, April the 5th, 1982, Stormfield stood before the cameras and gave his reasonings as to why we were not going to get a blizzard. Number one, he said, take a look at the current temperature. The current temperature at 11 o'clock that night was 38 degrees. and he said, "Look, if we're going to have a big snowstorm, you need temperatures below freezing, and certainly it is not below freezing as I see it right now. So how are you going to get a lot of snow?" Number two, he pointed out, was look at the relative humidity. The relative humidity was only like 27%. He said, "Look, if you're
Ding
going to
ding
have
ding 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 ding.
if you're going to have a snowstorm, again,
Ding
he
ding 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 ding.
he often said that he knew his weather because he took a few meteorology courses at McGill University in Montreal. So this is the total amount of knowledge that he was now providing to all of us on television. He said, "Look how dry it is." He said, "You need moisture to bring a big snowstorm in here, and look how dry it is. It's above freezing. It's very dry." And he said, "And here's the final thought." He said, "Look at the winds. The winds are coming out of a northerly direction." He said, "If you're going to have any kind of moisture, you want a wind coming in from the ocean." So we have dry conditions. And then he said, "Well, maybe we'll get some snow out of this, maybe 2 inches. It'll be a very unimpressive amount." Not noting that the fact that in April, just to get 2 inches in April of snow
Is a big deal.
is a big event because the
Yeah.
normal amount of snow is less than an inch. So he was talking about twice the normal complement of snow anyway, and he didn't see that that was all that much. What happened? Yes, it did start. It did start to rain. This is
which
about
is which is which is a signature for late season events. Usually, the late season snow events you get in March, also they usually tend to start off as rain.
It started off as
Right.
rain. The intensities picked up, and guess what? We had evaporational cooling kick in, and sure enough, with those dry, low dew point, I don't know what the dew points was. It was probably in the teens. As soon as it started to precipitate, the rain mixed with, and then eventually changed to snow. And with that storm system rapidly winding up off the mid-Atlantic coast, guess what? The winds came out of a northeast direction. The north
Yeah. Of
wind
course.
supplying the cold air, the east part of the wind supplying the
Of
moisture.
course.
Ding, 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 ding. We had like 8, 10, 12 inches of snow around the tri-state
And
area.
as we mentioned the other day on a Briller Jeopardy, I believe it was a Briller Jeopardy, or not a Veltman Jeopardy, that we had the next day, because I've got the map up here for uh, 0Z on the 7th, and you've got a 969 low in the Gulf of Maine. The 12Z the next morning, you've got this wrapped up low sitting in the Gulf of Maine, just off the southwest tip of Nova Scotia, really incredibly tight gradient. It was a windy day. It was a bitter cold day for April.
Right.
Temperatures, I think it's the one time temperature did not get above 32
The
for a
minimum,
daytime high.
the maximum temperature that day was the lowest maximum ever recorded in April. The
Right.
high temperature at Central Park was 30 degrees.
It's the
And the high
only, yeah,
temperature,
it's probably
and
the
the high
only
temp-
day it didn't get above freezing in the month of April for a daytime high.
and the high temperature at Boston that day was I don't have the Fahrenheit conversion. The high temperature was 10 Celsius.
10
Excuse me,
Celsius
minus 10.
minus 10. So that
Minus
would be 32 minus 9 is 23. I'm sorry. So it's 32 minus 9 is 23. So 14.
That was a pretty cold day in Boston.
Yeah.
And they didn't play baseball that day
Oh, you think?
at the stadium.
You think? Unreal. So that was yeah, these April events when they happen are pretty rare. Since we're on the subject, I want to bring up um, just really quick because it just occurred to me. I want to go look at April of '96. I was away for this. I had gone down south, and it was during Easter week, and I missed. So I'm going to say it was around April. Let me look at April 10th. Oh, hang on. Yeah, it might have been. I have to go back and check the date on this. Uh, April 8th. I mean, this was a situation where I got here on Long Island, in central Long Island off of Brookhaven. Yeah, it must have. This is Tuesday, April the 9th. Had a developing surface low and very cold temperatures to boot here. So this is, and here's a cold high out to the west, relatively cold high. Just getting to the next map. Yeah, so this particular one, I think this was the one that brought 16 inches to central Long Island, where you had a 96 low in the box and just enough cold air, especially aloft, to produce some. Was It was 16 inches pretty much. I mean, that's a lot of snow for any time of year, let alone in the month of April. So the bottom line is with these things, folks, is can, can they happen? Sure. Are they going to happen? Not this year. Not this year.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, Joe, if you want to get the camera back on me, I have the front page of Newsday that day,
It's on
uh,
you.
and here you go.
Yeah.
April 6th, 1982, blizzard. And somebody, when I posted this on my Facebook page, somebody said, "Gee, if that were the only thing we need to worry about now is just a bit of snow."
Yeah.
Whole different story now, 38 years later.
Exactly. Pretty quiet weather-wise today around much of the U.S. The only action really, from the standpoint of troublesome weather, is in California. Many counties in Southern California under flash flood watches right now, and also a variety of winter storm warnings that are up for some of the mountains north and west of San Diego and Los Angeles, and also up into the Sierra Nevadas. We also have some winter storm watches up in northwestern California in some of the mountains just inland of the coast. But other than that, it is quiet nationwide, and you've got a couple of areas with red flag warnings in the plains and down into parts of New Mexico and Colorado for rather unusual dry conditions. We should point out, by the way, that the Storm Prediction Center for tomorrow has notably expanded their area of severe weather risk, Joe, from marginal risk from southernmost New Jersey, northwest to northwestern Pennsylvania, across southern Michigan, back to Chicago, back to Missouri, and then from there go draw a line through Tennessee into South Carolina, and a large area of slight risk covering much of South and North Carolina, all of Virginia, most of Maryland, Southwest PA, all of West Virginia, virtually all of Kentucky, most of Ohio, half of Indiana, and almost but not quite half of Southern Illinois. So it looks like SPC's gotten getting a little bit uh, concerned, I guess is probably a good word, with regards to severe weather threat for tomorrow. Also, a small area of marginal risk down in Mississippi and Alabama. There's a warm sector that's setting up tomorrow, Joe, and I think that I think looking at what's going on both surface and aloft, the risk area to me is probably justified.
And we're just going to be just a little bit too stable for any kind of a convention here tomorrow night. I think we'll see some showers or some rain here, excuse me, late tomorrow night toward midnight, and probably into the after midnight hours into the early part of the morning on Wednesday. But as it would seem right now, all of the action is going to be just a stone's throw away to our south and west. Actually, tonight we're going to see a fast-moving little patch of moisture in the mid and high levels of the atmosphere come across the area. So whereas right now we're starting off with mostly clear skies, and you'll get a great view of that almost full moon this evening, there's probably going to be a period tonight, late tonight, into just before daybreak tomorrow morning, where we'll probably see quite a bit of mid and high level cloudiness. And it would almost whenever we get into that type of pattern, it reminds me of that line from The Highwaymen, written by Alfred Noyes. The moon is a ghostly galleon tossed upon cloudy seas, and we'll probably see that for a while again late tonight into just before sunrise tomorrow. But it's all due to just again a little patch of moisture at the 700 millibar level that'll be racing
Right.
through here overnight tonight.
I'm trying to look and see for tomorrow. At least I was looking at the 850 level here. There's very warm air that's pushing northward to see if there's a little bit of omega. Actually, at least at the 850 level, there's a fair amount of omega that shows up later Tuesday night north of New York City over you. That's where the warm front's going to be lying, Joe. Probably just the actual surface low is probably going to track very close to New York City. So it's going to try to bring that warm front up northward. I don't know if it's going to make it. And that may be the problem for Wednesday behind all this, that you're going to see areas from central and South Jersey, south and west, break out into some sunshine and probably warm up into the 60s and 70s. And then from New York City north and east, as the waiting for the low to pull out and lots of leftover clouds, it may have a tough time getting much out of the 50s in a lot of spots.
Yeah, especially since the winds are going to be on Wednesday, probably coming more from a north and northeast direction. So that may especially hold coastal areas down close to the low 50s, as opposed to what you just said, where temperatures, let's say in South Jersey, really going to warm up probably through the 60s, maybe even close to 70 degrees.
Yeah, I'm looking at the NAM 3 kilometer uh, for tomorrow, where they have the risk of severe weather. Not showing very much. I mean, it looks like they have a couple of broken lines here and there uh, that in the area where SPC has the risk, and it looks like the risk might be more for tomorrow night rather than during. I mean, it does pop up a few scattered cells during the day tomorrow, but then they have some more tomorrow night as the low approaches and the front goes by. The 12 kilometer NAM also, I mean, it's not like it goes really crazy with this, but as I have seen many times, sometimes the models themselves don't do justice to the amount of convection that can develop in the warm sector. So I'm going to respect SPC's putting up the slight risk, as opposed to when you look at the models here, you think, okay, there might be a strong cell here and a strong cell there, but it's not like they're gelling up a big line. And here's your surface low that drops down in western New York by uh, Wednesday at 11 a.m. There's a 994 low southeast of Nantucket. And you're right, from New York City north and east, it's going to be more of an east wind. From central New Jersey south and west, it'll be a northwest or a west wind, and those areas down to the south are going to be able to warm up.
And the unknown factor on Wednesday also at this point is, will we break out into some sunshine? It looks like right now we'll probably have some pretty good rain or shower activity after midnight tomorrow night into the wee early hours of Wednesday morning. Maybe by 8 or 9 o'clock, though, we're going to be done with the rain. And then for the rest of the day, it's going to be a matter of whether or not we break out into any semblance of sunshine. Sunshine certainly could bring temperatures quickly where they've been stuck, let's say near 50, back up to near or even above 60. But that's going to be the X factor, so to speak, is whether or not we do break out into some sun. I did notice on the RPM this morning that they wanted to break us out into lots and lots and lots of sunshine here Wednesday afternoon. But whether or not we actually do see that is still, I think, up for grabs.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that surface low, and how far north it is or isn't. Here's the GFS late this afternoon, so it looks like we'll cloud over tomorrow. We mentioned yesterday that Monday was the best day of the week weather-wise, and it still looks to be the case. You can see how the GFS produces some scattered showers that come through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. The low is well to the southeast of Long Island Wednesday morning. The northeast winds in New England, the west northwest winds to the south. There's still a couple of showers popping up into early afternoon. There's a stronger cold front that looks like it approaches on Thursday, and that has some convection with it moving into upstate New York. There's a strong trough and shortwave that's swinging southeastward from Canada and heading into southeastern Canada with a trailing cold front. So Thursday might be a day where we could see showers and maybe a thunderstorm or two. And then after that, looks like it's going to be kind of cold on Friday. Maybe some a little bit of snow in upstate New York and in Pennsylvania. That may also be mixed with rain. So elevation might drive this. Some lake effect, deep upper trough, and so on. But it does look like it's going to get rather chilly here for Friday and into this weekend. And then late in the weekend, Joe, the models have been kind of hinting at a low maybe coming up the coast here for early next week. Of course, there's no cold air, but the high moves off the South Atlantic coast. There's a cold front swinging across the Great Lakes, and you've got a low coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and moving up the East Coast for Sunday night, Monday. We'll see how that plays out. Models have been doing that for several runs now, and I don't know if you saw the folks from the long range guys. I saw a few people posting earlier about the fact that the pattern's going to be pretty cold in the 6 to 10 day outlook, and I think the 8 to 14 day outlook. The weather, they got a very chilly uh, outlook, and why not? I mean, look at the upper air, folks. You got this, you know, connection up from Canada, upper lows sitting over Hudson Bay, strong flow from the Arctic region in northwest Canada right down into the Great Lakes. Looks like much of the country might be pretty cold, starting from uh, this weekend and going into next week.
Well, they have a 90% probability of below normal temperatures centered, it looks like, in parts of the Dakotas, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota. 90% doesn't
Yeah,
often appear on on these especially 6 to 10 days out. We're in below normal, but it's not quite. It's like we're on the other side. We could either be near normal or just below normal temperature wise. But the real cold stuff looks like it's going to be out over the Midwest and across the northern and central Great Plains, and that again is the 6 to 10 day outlook. So we're talking about anytime from Easter Sunday on into the first half of next week.
yeah, and the pattern goes from blocky to not blocky to blocky again over the next 16 days. This is a very cold upper air that carries us right through the next 2 weeks. I've got the upper air for April 22nd, Joe. It's pretty cold. And it's not like it just suddenly appears. It's the dominating pattern for much of the next 2 weeks.
Right.
That's going to favor colder than normal temperatures. Finally, you've got a ridge that has returned for the first time in ages. We actually have a ridge building up the west coast. So the Pacific North America index may actually go positive for a while. We haven't seen that. And here's the blocky nature of all of this: higher than normal pressures over Greenland and in the North Atlantic, lower than normal pressures in southeastern Canada down into the Great Lakes, and just a very cold flow that brings it all the way down into the Gulf states and even into Florida with below normal temperatures.
And you know what, Joe? If it does get as cold as what the models are alluding to for next week, it won't take much if we can somehow manage to get the southern end of the jet stream active and form some kind of a development. If that can just take just the right kind of path relative to all that cold air, it would not be surprising if. Well,
For somebody,
I'm not
but
saying for us necessarily, but
no, but maybe New England or something like that, or Great Lakes
well,
or
we're
whatever.
also about out in the Midwest. I mean, like
Oh
if
yeah, oh
if it
yeah.
if something tracks up, let's say, toward the eastern Great Lakes, you don't be surprised. We'll be seeing by like maybe middle of next week, Chicago or Detroit or Minnesota, early spring snowstorm is hit. I
Well,
mean, that certainly is on the table
I
for.
got I got the anomalies up for the next 16 days, and the U.S. is basically a sea of blue and purple of below normal temperatures.
Right.
I'm looking at day 7 and 8, which is not that far out into the long range. Everywhere east of the Rockies is below to much below normal temperatures, and while it relaxes for a day or so, that would be in between cold fronts, and then if you go later in the forecast period, same thing. I mean, it's below normal all over the place, from the Rockies east to the East Coast, all the way down to the Gulf states, from Texas to Florida, and all throughout southeastern Canada. A January map for April 22nd. That's going to make a lot of snow lovers feel really good.
April 22nd. I mean, is
This,
that a little bit too late in the calendar?
I know. By the way, your chin is way up. Lower your head.
Well, I was typing something,
Oh,
so
okay. That's all right. Okay. So I'm bringing us back up full screen so we can check out the conversation. By the way, for those of you who were here yesterday and may have left before we found out the fact that Javon Perry still is among us and walking this earth, somebody thought it was really funny to put on the board that Jason had passed away from the coronavirus, but we were able to confirm that that was indeed not the case. Thank God, and he is here tonight on the chat board, so that's a good thing. It's amazing. I haven't really said very much about that, but it's that that was really a god awful thing for somebody to do. I can't imagine what would possess somebody to do that. But no matter, uh, they are no longer welcome here.
Yes, I would agree.
Good.
Ban,
Um.
block them.
Oh wait, no, hold on. Okay, so this person is going by the name of Sean Collins. He is on the board, and apparently he's got issues. Uh, the moderators have just gotten rid of him. If you guys, if you haven't blocked him off completely, because I know that doesn't stop them from making stuff. Oh, and I see Diego is back on causing problems. Oh, that's just great. These people, seriously, get off of the channel. Stop it. You're acting like a 5-year-old. Get off the channel. Go bother somebody else. Okay? Just go away. Just go away. You're not welcome here. Just go away. Okay?
As Deputy Dog once said, don't go away mad, just go away.
Just go away. Okay, so what else is going on?
Well, not really much. I mean, what do we talked about the virus. We talked about the anniversary of the blizzard. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about the current weather scenario. We talked about how cold it'll be getting nationwide by next week. We talked about April 22nd. Get ready to clear out all the milk and bread.
Yes.
If it hasn't already happened because of other factors. I don't know what else we could talk about, Joe.
So I made dinner tonight and I posted it. Although I didn't post a video, I did my roast chicken video yesterday on on Facebook and on YouTube. So for those of you, I'm going to make a channel. I'm going to make a playlist on my YouTube channel with all the cooking stuff that I've done. Excuse me. Sorry about that. My dinner is backing up on me. So they'll be easy to find in case you missed it. Yesterday, Joe, was roast chicken with baked potatoes and salad, and that was good. It turned out very good. Tonight, I made homemade pizza.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I actually split the pizza in half. I had this sauce in the freezer from the last time I made pasta, which was a while ago, and I use that as a starter for the next time I make sauce. And every time when I'm done, I refreeze it and on and on. So after 20 years, you're basically starting with sauce from 20 years ago. So the flavors are all in there. It's very very good. Anyhow, so half the pizza was sauce, a regular cheese pizza with tomato sauce on it. The other half was spinach and mozzarella.
Well, here at our house, we had pasta with meat sauce, which was very very nice.
Oh, okay. Well, see, she used the meat sauce for pasta, and I used the meat sauce for pizza.
Okay, yeah.
You know,
And
we
I
we were
way when
both on the same page, sort of.
my father used to actually make the pizza from scratch. My mother, let's see, where did she go? She went on. It was somewhere between I think on Pleasant Avenue and 118th Street or whatever. There was some place that sold the dough, and she would bring the dough home, and then my father would just flatten it out, and
Oh, you could I occasionally would go to a pizzeria, one of the local pizzerias. They'll sell you the pizza dough.
yeah,
Patsy's Pizzeria on First Avenue and 118th Street in Manhattan in East Harlem when we
yeah.
were
I
kids. They used to do that. And that place is still there, by the way.
believe it or
Um,
not.
yeah,
Believe it or not.
with the brick oven pizza. They uh, you could go there and they'll sell you the pizza dough. I bought the pizza dough in the local supermarket, and it was very good, and it worked out quite well.
Oh yeah. Whenever he said, "I think we'll make pizza tonight," I was always like, "Yay, yay, pizza!" So
Yeah.
and and we had pizza last week, but it was the kind you just take out of the freezer and warm up, and they.
Hang on.
Any questions out there of?
I didn't really see any. I think Paul Roman said that April 22nd is his birthday, so if it snows on his birthday, he'd be really happy. Um, and
Charles
that
Foco. Why I keep getting there's one of my Facebook friends, Charles Foco, and he's been sending me like every minute and a half. He keeps sending me some kind of status or whatever, commenting on the status that you shared. I mean, I don't know.
uh uh yeah, I just saw just a message from
Oh,
Dennis Cassia, because talking about what happened yesterday with the troll on there. Can you look at the cyclone in the South Pacific? Asked Johnny Quest. You know what, Ryan Ford, I got to message him back because he mentioned it to me. Typhoon. There's a cyclone in the southern hemisphere named Harold. So let me see if we can pick up the. Let me get the Australia map. Hold on, from Tropical Tidbits. By the way, I haven't said this mentioned it in a while, but just as certainly as a courtesy, um, our maps are courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com, which should be one's go-to maps for weather. And I'm just gonna see from here if we can pick it up on Australia. Hang on one second. I'll bring the
I was
map.
told I was told that they call cyclones in Australia willy willies.
Yeah, that's a name
Yeah.
that they used to use. Hang on. I'm gonna try to do this on the fly, so it's a
Before
little.
I die, by the way, I would love to go to Australia or New Zealand. I'd love to go to New Zealand.
New
Uh,
Zealand is beautiful. Not that I've been there, but it is beautiful. Now remember, this part of the world is going into their autumn and winter as we go into our spring and summer.
right,
All right,
right.
I got to see if there's a map that goes that far south. Hang on a second. Is there a South Pacific? Uh, North Pacific. I don't think he has a South Pacific. Oh, he's got a Southwest Pacific. Let's see if that works. Is that Harold out there? No, that's too far. Let's see. I'm doing this on the fly, folks. I didn't have time um, to take a look, but this is it's got to be this system here that is down to a 945 on the GFS millibar wise, and I'm trying to get my geography here so you can see. There's Australia. You see New Zealand on the lower right. There's a bunch of islands northeast of Australia. And that is forecast. So 0Z, that's right now. I'm just trying to see how far. Where's 66? Oh, I'm rolling it backwards. No wonder. Okay, just don't mind me, folks. I'm just trying to get a gauge here. So it looks like those were the Fiji Islands. There's Harold, category 936 pressure on this map, and moving southeastward out into the open waters of the Pacific. That's pretty cool. We don't get to really pay too much attention to this sort of stuff. So you know what? Tomorrow, if I get more information on it, I will. I'll bring it up and we'll spend a little bit of time on it. Excuse me. Uh, long.
It's get excited though about something that's out in the South Pacific about.
This is a tough time of year for us, though, Joe, for you and I, because we're in between. It's before the hurricane season's not even close to being here yet. It's spring. It's kind of a very, very quiet time, except for the rounds of severe weather that we get, unless there's a nor'easter, and there isn't one on the table at the moment.
But next week again could be more active because again it'll be unseasonably cold in the central part of the nation, and any kind of storm system that whirls up is probably going to be bringing um, the potential for some wintry precipitation, albeit it'll be almost a month into astronomical spring and more than a month into meteorological spring. But
Dennis Cassius says Comet Atlas may be breaking up.
yeah, yeah, for all of you out there who are hoping that the comet was going to evolve into something significant, it really was nothing. It's interesting. There apparently was a comet in 1844, and that comet fractured into several pieces. One of those pieces apparently is what we're looking at right now. That's Comet Atlas. So it's a small chunk of a comet. It really didn't have all that much going for it to begin with. And the interesting thing is that it brightened so quickly as it was approaching the sun, and now as it gets closer to the sun, it looks like now it's just starting to fall apart, so to speak. It doesn't really look like it's going to be a. If you were hoping for another comet Hale Bopp or a comet that you'll be able to go outside and take a look at the western sky and there it is, oh beautiful. That's not going to happen. So, eh.
No, and that's it. All right, so let's call
I
it
should
a night.
we should
Right.
point out, however, that tomorrow is the so-called super moon. This is the moon that is full and will also coincide with lunar perigee. And already, in light of that, or in advance of that, the National Weather Service has issued coastal flood advisories for Long Island and also for the Sound Shore of Westchester, making the assumption that the uh, tides are going to be running higher than normal because of that full moon. And usually, the highest tides come not on the day when the moon is closest to the Earth, but a day or two later. So we might be looking at the highest tides this week, maybe a Wednesday or Thursday, Joe. And at that time, with winds out ahead of that cold front on Thursday from the south, we may see some flooding, coastal flooding along the south shore of Long Island and along the sound shore of Westchester. So that'll be something to watch in the next 2 or 3 days for those who have interests along those particular coastlines. And again, it's all because of the moon being closest to the Earth at full phase and astronomically higher than normal, what we call a spring tide. It has nothing to do with the spring season. It's from the German word "springen," which means that the water seems to spring up, and that's where we get the term spring tide from. So we'll have a higher than normal spring tide this week. I also got to tell you, when we were going to have when my son was before my son was born, my wife and I we were taking Lamaze classes in Freeport, out on the south shore of Long Island.
Right.
We went to this woman's home and she was giving Lamaze classes to parents who are going to have their first child or wanted to get an idea of what to do in that situation. And about halfway through the class, she just glanced out the window and she said, "How many of you have parked right in front of the house or down the block? If you do, I strongly urge you right now to run out and move your car because the water, which was like a block and a half away from where this woman lived, because of the full moon was in the sky, and it must have been
Right.
a moon, was coming up on shore and coming up the block." And I asked her later, I said,
Really?
"How many?" I said, "Does this happen often?" He says, "Only when we have an unusually close full moon." And that's probably going to happen on that block during this week.
Well, it's a good thing at least, because we had some minor coastal flooding here Friday night into Saturday morning on Long Island and in parts of New Jersey from late last week when we had that onshore flow for a while. So at least the onshore flow for tomorrow is it's there, but it's not in full force. Well, over the because we had that big ocean storm that dropped down, so that created some coastal flooding. So it's a good thing we're not seeing that coastal low now, because then it would have been much more problematic.
It's always interesting when we're in this lunar cycle. It is the greatest range of tides. In other words, the high tide cycle, you have higher than normal high tides. At low tide, you have a lower than normal low tide. And I presume that on those occasions when we have an unusually strong wind blowing from just the right direction, that there are some places that, I mean, the Weather Service will issue a low tide alert for unusually low water conditions. So it's always interesting,
A
and
low water advisory.
yes, a low water
A low
advisory.
water
Yeah,
advisory.
right.
All right, so it looks like, by the way, I noticed I'm starting to get notifications of our own live stream, so things are maybe starting to get slowly back to normal or a little bit closer to normal. And we had a larger crowd tonight, which was good to see. Thanks everybody for being here. Joe and I will be back tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern time. We'll see if we'll have some severe weather to talk about on the radar in the Mid-Atlantic states and in the Ohio Valley, and we'll see you then. Thanks for being here. Good night, everybody.